My name is Yuki, and I never expected that Ayutthaya's ancient stones would teach me about the architecture of human connection. The work assignment felt random when it arrived: cultural preservation technology for Thailand's historic temple complex, a UNESCO World Heritage Site north of Bangkok. I specialized in humidity control systems. Not archaeological mysteries, but sometimes life assigns us roles we never auditioned for. As the van carried me through rice fields turned amber by February's dry season, I wondered if I was traveling toward answers to questions I hadn't yet learned to ask. The ruins of Ayutthaya spread before me like a meditation on impermanence. 3 towering spires reaching toward an indifferent sky. This 14th-century royal capital had ruled Siam for over 4 centuries, before Burmese armies reduced it to beautiful fragments in 1767. Now tourists wandered among headless Buddha statues and crumbling prangs, photographing what remained of a vanished kingdom. I set up my monitoring equipment in the shadows of Wat Phra Si Sanpet, watching numbers on digital displays while contemplating how civilizations, like relationships, can survive destruction and find new forms of meaning. Working among the ruins felt like translation, interpreting the language of moisture and temperature that could either preserve or destroy these remnants of human ambition. Each reading told a story about time's patient erosion, how even stone surrenders eventually to the elements. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had come to protect the past, while my own history felt increasingly distant, like memories viewed through thick glass. My apartment in Tokyo, my careful routines, the life I had constructed with deliberate precision seemed impossibly far from this place, where tourists sought enlightenment among broken statues. Late afternoon at Wat Mahathat, while calibrating sensors near the famous Buddha head entwined in banyan roots, I heard a familiar voice speaking Japanese to a tour group. The sound stopped me completely, not because I recognized the words, but because I recognized something deeper in the cadence. The particular way she shaped explanations with patience and enthusiasm. When I turned, I saw her profile against the golden light, filtering through leaves, and my breath caught in recognition of someone I thought belonged only to memory. Elena? The name escaped before I could stop it. Though she had been Hiromi when we worked together at the cultural center in Kyoto 3 years ago. She turned, and her expression moved through surprise, recognition, and something more complex: the careful joy of encountering a chapter you thought had ended. She excused herself from her tour group with professional grace, and suddenly we were standing together in this place that neither of us had ever mentioned in our old conversations about literature and preservation work. She had become a tour guide, she explained as we found shade near a restored stupa. The cultural center had closed during the pandemic, and she had come to Thailand to study temple architecture, eventually staying to work with international visitors. Her English had grown confident and precise, shaped by months of explaining Ayutthaya's complex history to travelers who sought meaning in ancient stones. I told her about the humidity control project, how I had reluctantly accepted work outside my usual expertise, and we both smiled at the strange mathematics of coincidence that had brought us to the same patch of ruined temple on the same February afternoon. We spent the evening walking along the Chao Phraya River, watching the sun paint the ruins in shades of gold and amber. Elena spoke about her work with the reverence of someone who had found unexpected purpose, how each tour group taught her something new about communication, how explaining history had become a form of meditation on time and change. She described the challenge of translating not just language but cultural concepts, helping visitors understand that these ruins weren't just tourist attractions, but active sites of spiritual meaning for Thai Buddhists. I found myself telling her about the loneliness of technical work, how I spent my days measuring invisible forces that could either preserve or destroy, how precision felt increasingly hollow when applied to human relationships. We had parted awkwardly in Kyoto, after a friendship that had threatened to become something more complicated. Both of us pulling back from a threshold neither was ready to cross. Now, 3 years and thousands of miles later, we discovered we could speak with the ease of people who had learned different lessons about intimacy and distance. The next 3 days developed their own rhythm as my work schedule aligned with her tour breaks. Elena showed me Ayutthaya through her guide's eye-hidden corners, where locals still made offerings, viewpoints where sunset transformed the ruins into silhouettes against fire-colored sky, small restaurants where the food tasted like memory and hope combined. She had learned to love this place not as an escape from her previous life, but as a continuation of it, her passion for cultural preservation, finding new expression in the daily act of translation and explanation. We talked about time's strange alchemy, how relationships could survive destruction and reconstruction just like these ancient temples. Our friendship had cracked apart in Kyoto under the weight of unspoken expectations. But here among the ruins it had found a different, formless urgent, more accepting of complexity and change. Elena spoke about her Thai colleagues, her small apartment near the river, the satisfaction of work that felt like service rather than career advancement. I realized I envied her ability to reinvent herself completely, while remaining essentially herself. On my final evening, we climbed to a hidden viewpoint she reserved for special visitors, a small hill behind Wat Chaiwatanaram where tourists never ventured. From there, the temple complex spread below us like a map of dreams. Floodlit spires marking sacred geometry against the dark river. Elena brought local sweets and thermos tea, and we sat on a blanket watching planes trace distant lights across the star-filled sky, talking about everything except the fact that I would leave tomorrow and we might never see each other again. She told me about her plans to eventually start a small guest house, combining her love of hospitality with her knowledge of local history. The dream felt both practical and romantic: rooms decorated with traditional crafts, breakfasts featuring regional specialties, evenings spent helping guests understand the deeper meanings behind the tourist sites they visited. I offered technical advice about electrical systems and water management, finding unexpected pleasure in applying my expertise to her vision of future hospitality. As we prepared to part, Elena pressed a small wrapped package into my hands, a locally made ceramic piece shaped like a lotus bud, glazed in colors that reminded me of Ayutthaya's sunset light. "For your apartment in Tokyo," she said simply. "So you remember that beautiful things can grow from ruins." I realized then that this gift was not about nostalgia or romantic possibility, but about friendship's capacity to survive transformation, to become something neither urgent nor possessive but genuinely sustaining. The van ride back to Bangkok passed in contemplative silence. The ceramic lotus carefully wrapped how beautiful things grow from ruins, and understood that she had been speaking about more than ancient temples. Some relationships require destruction before they can find their truest form, burning away expectation and possession to reveal the simple miracle of mutual recognition across time and distance. Back in Tokyo, I placed Elena's lotus on my windowsill, where morning light could touch it. A daily reminder that preservation sometimes requires letting go, that the most meaningful connections often exist in the spaces between contact and absence. Months later, she sends occasional postcards, updates about her guest house progress, photos of particularly spectacular sunsets over the ruins. Brief messages that maintain connection without demanding response. I write back with equal restraint, sharing technical discoveries or Tokyo observations that might interest someone who has chosen a completely different life. We have become something that has no proper name, not former lovers. Not exactly friends, but people who recognize each other across the distance of separate choices and continuing affection. Elena taught me that some relationships are like the Ayutthaya ruins themselves, most beautiful, not in their original form, but in what they become after time and elements have worn away everything except the essential structure. What remains is neither romantic nor platonic, but something more durable: the knowledge that human connection can survive any number of endings and beginnings. Sometimes, arranging technical reports in my Tokyo office, I remember that hidden viewpoint above the temples, where we sat watching planes cross the star-filled sky. Elena exists now in that suspended moment between presence and memory, between what was and what might still be possible. Ayutthaya's broken stones taught me that destruction can be a form of creation, that letting go of one shape allows something unexpected, and perhaps more beautiful, to emerge. In the end, the most profound preservation work happens not in controlling humidity and temperature, but in learning when to hold on, and when to allow transformation to work its patient magic on everything we thought we understood.